Welcome everyone to our Facebook Live, the Santa Barbara Response Network. We're very happy that you joined us today for this discussion on human trafficking. And now our interpreter, Elise, will be giving us some information on how you can access this in Spanish. Please, Elise.
Thank you, Gina. Hello, good evening. My name is Alice Rubalcaba. This is a bilingual message and we'll repeat in English. Hola, buenas tardes. Este es un mensaje bilingüe y será repetido en inglés. Mi nombre es Alice Rubalcaba y seré su intérprete el día de hoy. La presentación del día de hoy será interpretada simultáneamente en inglés y en español por medio de una línea telefónica. Si usted habla inglés o bilingüe, no tiene que hacer nada. Si usted habla español, por favor comuníquese al teléfono 425-436-6389 con el número de identificación 893-2337 y el PIN 9659. Le repito el teléfono 425-436-6389, número de identificación 893-2337, PIN 9659. Good evening, this is a bilingual message. The meeting will be translated interpretation simultaneously in English and Spanish. If you speak English or you're bilingual, you don't have to do anything. Otherwise, please, if you speak Spanish, join the line at the phone number 425-436-6389, ID number 89322337 with the PIN 9659. We might now begin the meeting. Thank you. Podemos empezar.
Gracias, Elise. Thank you. I'm very pleased to have this conversation on our Compassion Center this week. It's been a subject and a topic that I've been very curious to educate myself on. And when I asked the community and several of my trusted partners who work in the community with youth and other marginalized families who I should have on to discuss human trafficking, they recommended Dr. Jill Sharkey. And I'll give you a little bio on what Dr. Sharkey is doing right now professionally at UCSB, but really I invited her because of her dedication and passion to equity, to the marginalized community, to youth, and to the issues that surround exploitation in our community. So thank you for your work, number one, and your passion and your heartfelt work. And Dr. Sharkey is Associate Dean for Research and Education at UCSB, Department of Counseling, Clinical, and School Psychology. There are many things that can be said about her professional work, but I mean, her mentorship of the doctoral students, of several of which I know, have been so incredibly valuable as those students have entered the community and taken on this work. Dr. Sharkey is also involved with the Santa Barbara County Human Trafficking Task Force and RISE, which stands for the Resilience Interventions for Sexual Assault. And all this dedication to serving and educating our community is why I invited her here today. Thank you, Dr. Sharkey, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Gina. It's such an honor to be here. I've long known about the great work of the Santa Barbara Response Network, and I'm really humbled to be here to speak on behalf of survivors of commercial sexual exploitation. And I'll be speaking about what I've really learned a lot from our county partners, the Department of Behavioral Wellness, Lisa Conaconi, and many others. So I'm really honored and looking forward to talking about this really important topic today.
Yeah, thank you. And the Santa Barbara Response Network's been working with traumatized families after any incidents that have affected our community for 12 years now. We're a volunteer grassroots organization. We've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Sharkey and her colleagues, but we do 24-hour response work, English and Spanish, throughout the community. And we are going to begin in the new year psychological first aid and compassion centers in Mixteco to be able to serve our indigenous the community that so much in need of support as well. So this will be recorded and will be available in English and Spanish on our YouTube channel. And we have been having interviews since COVID started, the week COVID started, in English and Spanish. So we have an array, a library of topics and speakers, and I welcome you to join them. So my first question is really, even for myself, human trafficking has really become a topic that's been so prevalent. Everyone is saying, you know, there's an increase, there's this, but can you offer us a simple definition to educate our community of what is human trafficking?
Yes.
In your own words.
I will, yes. So I want to distinguish between commercial sexual exploitation and human trafficking. So human trafficking and child sex trafficking is really when we're recruiting and transporting or obtaining a child for the purpose of having them do a sex act. So it's not like what we think about when we think about folks coming from illegally across the, into the United States and being exploited here. It's really can be someone who's growing up in our town and who is coerced into providing these sex acts. That would meet the definition of human trafficking, and specifically child sex trafficking. There's also labor trafficking, so youth who are trafficked for the purpose of providing labor. But specific to the sexual exploitation of children, it's really using that child for financial benefit. So it doesn't have to just be getting paid for sex acts. It could be anything of value. So shelter, housing, it also includes pornography and stripping and phone sex lines. And survival sex, which is exchanging sex for food or shelter. And I guess as I'm talking about this, I realize it's probably self-evident, but this topic is could be very triggering and very upsetting. And so I just want to warn our participants that this topic is hard to talk about. And if you feel like you need to take a break, please do. And this will be posted so you can come back to it as well. And then I just want to say that the difference between—
thank you for—
Yeah. And then the difference between with children and with youth. So children are under the age of 18. And of course, anyone under the age of 18 can't provide consent to be exploited or sold for sex. And so the youth age over 18 to 25 don't have the same legal protections as children. So for children, it would be a mandated reported activity if you were to suspect someone was experiencing or being exploited. But if they're an older youth, then they don't have the same protections, but we do have services and legal protections for them. It's just not as clear as for children under the age of 18.
Mm-hmm. Right. It would be more difficult to attribute that is happening but with a child, it's very, very obvious that that's happening. And would you speak on the prevalence maybe in our community, our own community, and what you're seeing nationally or even internationally?
Yeah, so locally, we've been really trying to figure out this number, and we believe that we only know what we could say is the tip of the iceberg, because for the most part, where we know, maybe I can just speak a little bit about who kind of ends up being exploited. And first, because I think, I don't know how many of the listeners have daughters or sons who are teenagers in junior high, or know someone in their life who's a junior high student. But at this age, kids really want to be liked, and they really want to feel this sense of belonging. And that need can transcend their need for food or safety or shelter. And for students who are feeling like they don't belong, are easier to exploit. So someone can come in and kind of convince that child that they can love them and provide them with this belonging and this feeling of security in that way. And so I know that many youth are susceptible to that. And so when we look within systems where there are more vulnerable youth, such as the juvenile justice system or the child welfare system, when we've done in-depth screenings of those systems statewide, we found that as many as 30% or a third of youth are at very high risk for sexual exploitation, and almost 20% are confirmed exploited. When we get to, so that's obviously a very specialized population of our youth. But then, when we get down into the school age population, any youth who's skipping school or not attending school is going to be at high risk for being exploited. But we just don't know the prevalence because it's so well hidden until that youth maybe later on is getting in trouble with the law or other kind of symptoms of being exploited. But nationwide, over 1.2 million children are being exploited in every county and state across the United States. California is one of the corridors, one of the hotspots for trafficking, and Santa Barbara is along a trafficking corridor where from Sacramento and the Bay Area to San Diego, and there's child sex tourism. So tourist populations like Santa Barbara are popular for this activity.
Oh, I was wondering, I heard that about Santa Barbara and this portal, and I wondered why. But it's because of that it being a vacation spot or a spot where people come to. Oh, I understand now. I wanted to also tell people listening that you can ask questions of Dr. Sharkey throughout this conversation. You can enter them on Facebook on the feed, and we'll get them and ask Dr. Sharkey. You can also send them to us afterwards, and we'll make sure that they get answered. So so we're hearing this information, and what can we look for if we're concerned or we see maybe some red flags? What are those, and what can we look for that there might be an incident of trafficking?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the county, a bunch of really smart collaborators in our county on the Human Trafficking Task Force worked together to develop this tool that we're going to post on Facebook. It's called the First Responder Identification Tool. So it's for anyone out in the community, police officers, teachers, firefighters, anyone who may see some signs, or work teachers, anyone who's working with youth regularly. If we see someone who's young in a motel room with a bunch of other adults coming in and out of there, that would be a high risk warning sign. There's youth who have sudden means that they didn't have in the past. So it could be jewelry, makeup, clothing, but it also could be things that child wants. So even if they're like really academically engaged and are excited to go on to college and have a career, maybe their family couldn't afford a laptop or a backpack, and all of a sudden they have these nice things. Maybe that's because someone's trying to groom them and lure them into owing some favors that could be exploited. Being listed on Craigslist or Backpage or Tinder for dating or for the purpose of sex acts is an automatic knowledge of most likely being exploited. If they've been a missing person or has been missing, runaway type of behavior is a big warning sign. Things that are associated and that would need a few to really indicate sexual exploitations are things youth will be branded with tattoos that are indicative of being exploited. Being homeless without a parent or guardian, so like couch surfing or staying with different friends on different nights, being kind of under the influence or using substances is a big risk factor. It's a way to exploit youth. Let's see, being in a controlling relationship with or in a relationship with a much older person. A lot of times exploiters are nicknamed like my daddy or my uncle. It's sort of creating that family belonging sense. Having more than one cell phone. And like I said, being in the foster care system or the juvenile justice system is also a big warning sign and something to look for that. And if any of those signs are noticed, as mandated reporters or members of the community, we should be completing a suspected child abuse if that child is under 18 years old.
And you submit that report to Protective Services, Child Protective Services, or the DA's office,
Yeah,
District Attorney's office?
Yeah, suspected child abuse would be the report that you would in any kind of abuse situation, but you would want to note that this is suspected commercial sexual exploitation, and they do have a specific interventions and screenings for commercial sexual exploitation. Child welfare is actually kind of the coordinator of referrals and data in counties in California to kind of coordinate these efforts across the county.
Yeah, and I know that you have also shared with us, which will be put on the Facebook, the resources and places that people can turn to for assistance and for resources. So thank you for that. And we'll post those and share those. The other thing I was curious about, it is labor, like forced labor. It's like I was thinking, it's like a form of almost like slavery, where someone is being exploited for labor. Can you talk a little bit about that too, and how prevalent that is?
Yeah, I am not as much in the know about labor trafficking in our county. I do know that the focus has been much more on the sexual exploitation, particularly of children, but we do have concerns about labor trafficking, and there have been, so the district attorney does have a grant that works on both the side of prosecute investigations and the side of survivor support, and they are tasked with both types of human trafficking, both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. But I would say that we've all kind of been more focused on the sex trafficking, even though I think labor trafficking is as much of, if not more, of a problem across all ages, not just children, but adults as well.
Yeah. And do you think that with COVID and the hardships that so many families are experiencing right now, that there would be a rise in trafficking and sex trafficking right now?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And I think this is all done over social media, all the, sometimes the grooming, but definitely the trafficking. So it is more than ever, our kids are on social media and devices without parental supervision. And so and I think, families may be, sometimes they're a little bit involved with the trafficking in terms of taking advantage of an exploiter's offering of resources. And I know when I talk to my daughter and my son, we really work on understanding like what a healthy relationship is, and what the importance of protecting your social media presence, and not being so out there with your pictures and your name that someone could easily target you, because that's the way it can get started. Back in the days,
yeah, that leads me to my next.
Yeah, I was just going to say briefly that sometimes
recruiting.
Yeah, in recruiting with the so recruitment can happen by anyone, anywhere, and there'll even be youth within the schools who have been groomed to recruit other children, and doing that is a way to gain favor with the trafficker and to get out of some of the less the harder activities you have to do when you're being exploited. So the traffickers and the recruiters are young and charming and are at the schools. They are, looking out for kids who may be starting to skip school, and luring them with like skip parties and having fun and things like that. But over, getting kids on social media is as easier than it's ever been before.
Yeah, I would think that's so true. It's unsupervised time, and the sense of isolation that these children are feeling right now. They're at home alone. This could be an exciting thing. Here's someone paying attention to me. So even parents or caregivers noticing this allure that they have, or this new friend they have, or this excitement, is maybe even one of those warning signs of what's going on, you know?
Yeah, and this isn't like only a certain social economic group or only kids from certain racial ethnic backgrounds. Like no one's immune to this. It's really if the child feels that they like you said, they're home, they're alone, they're on social media, they're bored, or they're going out in the community with no structured activities because of COVID, and those exploiters are out there looking for those kids and will develop a relationship that feels very safe and secure.
Yeah, I really like that you talked that it cuts across socioeconomic barriers, because I think people may have the misunderstanding that's all these very poor, marginalized people who have no outlet that are going to do this. This is what the recruiter is appealing to, is the psychological need and the feeling, that emptiness and that looking for something, which may not just be monetary or things. It could be that they're being offered something that the child is looking for. And so that could be across in any family.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think it's important to make that point. I appreciate that you do that. And so I wondered if you could talk about if there's anything to say about prevention, or about what we can do if we notice it or we're concerned about it. We talked a little bit about the resources, but is there anything you could say about prevention? Would you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting the word out, like with this activity today, and helping people understand the scope of the issue. And, my first concern is identification, because I think if we can identify this when it's just starting, we can really prevent it and catch it before it causes so much harm. In terms of prevention, we are currently on the Human Trafficking Task Force, and this organization, this little kind of, we call it the Trafficking Action Group, or TAG, which is trying to have kind of connect the community together and coordinate efforts in regards to sexual exploitation of children. We're really advocating for work within the schools, both to train teachers and administrators, and also to teach parents and children. I think that it's a controversial issue to talk about this with kids, but I know that talking to my daughter, she's 12 now, but when she was 10 and when she was 9, in age appropriate ways, can be a very powerful way to help them resist that. We call them the Romeo trafficker, the one who's going to lure them with their love. And so I think schools in their health classes can really do a good job of teaching about healthy relationships and how to avoid exploitation. And then we also are we have a great SARB coordinator and other, like Ali Cortez and Karina Trevino, who are working like at the level of kids who are identified for our truancy, because of truancy, and really understanding that that's a very high risk factor for exploitation, and trying to connect youth, recognize and connect youth to services through that. At the county level, between child welfare and the county behavioral wellness, there's the access line where if you are concerned about a youth's well-being, you can call the access line, and they will do a little assessment, and that assessment does ask questions that would identify commercial sexual exploitation, and they will help make a referral to child welfare and or to their full service partnerships program for children and youth, or for transitional age youth, to provide the kinds of wraparound services that are needed for youth who've experienced this type of exploitation. The RISE program, which was funded to the County Department of Behavioral Wellness through the Mental Health Services Act was a amazing 5-year project that provided a lot of resources for youth who were identified as being exploited. The program served at least 200 children and youth. And out of that, we've developed a toolkit that we should be posting soon that really covers a lot of information about all of this, but also like a little bit of a perspective from survivors themselves. And just kind of trying to understand a little bit about their resilience. So a lot of youth in the mental health system are really experiencing a lot of acute psychiatric distress, but survivors of sexual exploitation tend to be really strong and resilient. They've, to come through what they've gone through, but sometimes that resiliency looks like not being grateful to service providers who want to give them support. They're just fine surviving without having been well served by systems and agencies in the past. So I think it's very confusing when working with youth and children who've been sexually exploited. A lot of times they don't identify as being exploited. That's not how they see what happened to them. They see it as having been bad choices and bad friends that they had a relationship with. So it's as a very unique group of resilient youth to work with and support in a healing journey.
Yeah. Wow. So, the two things I got from what you were sharing, the first is that there are resources and places people can turn to. And I really want people to hear that. It's always the message when we talk on these compassion centers or through the Santa Barbara Response Network. You're not alone. Please, if you're worried, if you're concerned, there are services, there is support, there is help. That's number one message. The number two is, just so you said so well, prevention has to do with education. We have to educate ourselves, our families, our children, and our community about this topic, because the more education there is, I work in the field of suicide prevention, and the more education we have about what people can do, that's really how can we reach out and be a friend and express our concern and get help. That's really the first step, and we shouldn't shy away or be afraid of this topic, because it's really a way to help our children, and if we catch it early, we'll be able to stop and avert so much suffering. So I wanted to just really make that point that there should be no taboo subjects when it comes to our children. And this is one that sometimes has been, like suicide was. It was kind of, we don't want to talk about it, but it's going on. And I really admire the work. And I work closely with Alejandra Cortez at the schools and through the community engagement team. So many youth workers looking out for the children and the youth, and providing them with help and resources. So a shout out to them for the work they're doing. Would you say that you're seeing that there's more enlightened, that we are a more enlightened community over the last few years over this topic?
I
From what
think
you've observed?
Yeah, absolutely. I had this
Yeah.
immense privilege of interviewing like over a dozen, maybe 24 stakeholders in this community, and the evolution of law enforcement, the evolution of the district attorney's office, of nonprofit providers has been tremendous. It's not enough. We need more, but I think we're a leader in this effort, and I hope that we can continue to build on what we've done so far. And if I have a minute left, I'd love to read some guidance that we took directly from the survivors' words for supporting those who've been in this. Okay.
Yes, please. Please leave me out.
Okay, so key guidance directly from survivors. So be real. It's vital that providers are authentic, transparent, and avoid jargon. Do not judge me. Help me get what I need. Do not force me to talk about what happened to me. Earn my trust. It will take time. Be there for me, even if I need time away. Cheer me up. Make me laugh. Listen to me. Teach me coping skills. Take me to do fun things. Help me with a plan to meet my goals. Be persistent. Reach out to me. Guide me towards independence. Be patient with me. Keep giving me chances. See me for who I am becoming, not what happened in my past. I am strong and I can do this.
Wow. What a beautiful way to end it, end our conversation. This is what we need to hear. I love, let's keep it real and offer me what I need and, you know, maybe help me realize my potential. Thank you, Dr. Sharkey, and for your work and your dedication to our children and our families. And we'll put in the Facebook, our phone number for the Santa Barbara Response Network, our website, and we can guide you, and also the resources that Dr. Sharkey put in so that we can guide you to help, and also know that you're not alone and that you can reach out anytime. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so
And
much.
have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too.
And also a wonderful holiday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.